to fugitive. A former Canadian snowboard champ is now one of the FBI's 10 most wanted.
Wedding went from being an elite athlete to running one of the most sophisticated drug traffickers.
He controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in this world.
January 31st, 2025, Medellin, Colombia. Just before noon, a man under federal witness protection walks into a small restaurant. He is not hiding. He is not armed. He believes the location is secure. He sits down, orders, and waits. 30 seconds later, a gunman enters. There is no argument, no hesitation. When it is over, the shooter walks out the same way he came in. Chairs are displaced. Staff do not scream. The scene does not resemble a robbery or a dispute. It resembles scheduling. Investigators later confirmed something even more disturbing. The witness's photograph had been circulating online for days, uploaded to a Canadian website known for exposing underworld information. Someone knew exactly where he was. Someone knew when he sat down, and someone had arranged for him to die. That single execution would trigger a chain of events that would lead back to one man, a former Canadian Olympian turned international drug kingpin, Ryan James Wedding. Long before he became one of the FBI's 10 most wanted, Ryan Wedding was something else entirely. He was a teenage snowboard prodigy. He was disciplined, structured, raised in a world of training schedules, coaching oversight, and competitive pressure. Born on September 14, 1981, in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Wedding grew up around Mount Baldy ski area, operated by his grandparents. His childhood was defined by early mornings, long hours, and repetition. By age 12, he was already competing seriously. By 15, he was part of Canada's junior national snowboarding program. Coaches would later describe him as technically gifted and unusually calm in high-risk situations. Investigators reviewing this period decades later would ask a chilling question. How does someone learn to make life or death decisions without hesitation at such a young age? In February 2002, Wedding represented Canada at the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. He competed in the men's parallel giant slalom, finishing 24th out of 32. It was not a medal, but it was an Olympic appearance, something most athletes never achieve. Then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, Wedding disappeared from competitive sport. Between 2003 and 2005, there were no records of competition, no coaching contracts, no career transition. Former teammates later described him as harder to track, harder to read. Federal investigators would later mark this period as the first unexplained gap in his timeline. An Olympic-level athlete had walked away from a world of structure and oversight without any visible replacement. What replaced it was chaos. By 2006, Wedding's name surfaced in connection to a massive marijuana grow operation in British Columbia. 6,800 plants inside a commercial property. He was not charged. His name appeared briefly in law enforcement documents and then vanished. Reporters missed it. Police did not. That same year, he began moving constantly between British Columbia and the United States. He enrolled in school, dropped out, tried business ventures in Vancouver, failed, crossed borders with no clear pattern, no fixed residence, no fixed employment. People who knew him during this period all noticed the same thing. When others panicked, Wedding stayed calm. That calm would soon become something far more dangerous. In 2008, in San Diego, California, Ryan Wedding was arrested transporting 24 kilograms of cocaine. It was his first official appearance in U.S. federal drug intelligence. He pled guilty. He served time. And then he was released. For most people, that would have been the end. For Wedding, it was the beginning. What investigators would later find terrifying was not that he went back to crime, it was how he went back. When Wedding returned to Canada in late 2008 and early 2009, he did not behave like a first-time offender. He did not act like someone who had just been caught. He acted like someone who had completed training. From 2009 to 2013, Wedding appeared only intermittently in law enforcement databases, border crossings, financial traces, contact with individuals already flagged in drug investigations. There were no arrests, but there were signals. Encrypted messages recovered from unrelated raids, unexplained international travel, gaps in residential records. His operational discipline increased year after year. He was building something quietly. By 2015, that something had a name inside law enforcement circles: Project Harrington, a multi-agency investigation in British Columbia targeting one of the most violent cocaine networks in North America. The network was tied to murders, extortion, and cross-border trafficking. Digital forensics uncovered something strange: a set of encrypted accounts appearing months apart on Signal, Threema, Telegram, each coinciding with major drug shipments or violent events. The same writing style, the same coordination pattern, different names: Al Hay, Giant, Public Enemy, Jesse King. Each alias served a different function: supply, distribution, negotiation, coordination. They never overlapped, and they all belonged to one man: Ryan Wedding. Investigators realized they were no longer dealing with a trafficker. They were dealing with a systems engineer. Wedding had created something entirely new: a token system, a coded ledger for tracking drugs and money without using names, locations, or explicit instructions. Symbols, quantities, balance updates. By 2019, it was fully operational. It allowed his network to survive arrests, seizures, and informants. He was no longer evading law enforcement. He was building infrastructure designed to outlive it. From 2020 to 2022, the network exploded. More people reported working under Wedding. Almost none had met him. Encrypted accounts multiplied, distribution cells expanded, supply chains deepened. His visibility disappeared while his influence grew. Investigators called it structural anonymity, a system where no one knows enough to betray the whole. By 2023, authorities finally understood the shape of it. At the top was Wedding, coordinating remotely. Beneath him was Christopher Clark, the enforcement arm, present at nearly every violent incident. Beneath them were Los Angeles stash houses, Brampton distributors, Canadian couriers, Colombian lab contacts. Each layer compartmentalized, each designed to function if the others collapsed. Then the violence escalated. On November 20th, 2023, 3 innocent people were shot when a hit team went to the wrong address in Ontario. In April 2024, a trafficking-linked individual was executed in Niagara Falls. Cell tower records placed a Wedding associate nearby, confirming the target. As paranoia spread inside the network, Wedding outsourced violence to international contract killers in Mexico and Colombia. Disposable, anonymous, unstable. Efficiency replaced trust. And then came the photo: a protected federal witness sitting in public, photographed, uploaded to Dirty News, a Canadian site known for exposing underworld figures. No caption, just a timestamp and a location, a signal. That witness would be dead in Medellin on January 31st, 2025. By the time the FBI placed Ryan Wedding on the 10 most wanted list on March 6th, 2025, he was no longer just a trafficker. He was something far more dangerous. He had built a system designed to survive him. After law enforcement realized that Ryan Wedding was operating under multiple identities at once, the scope of what he had built began to emerge. This was not a gang. It was not even a cartel in the traditional sense. It was a logistics network designed to move cocaine from Colombia to Canada and the United States while keeping the man at the top completely invisible. The brilliance of Wedding's system was not that it was violent, it was that it was organized. Most trafficking groups rely on trust. Trust is fragile, people flip, phones get tapped, crews get arrested. Wedding eliminated that weakness by eliminating human dependency. Instead of telling people what to do, he built a financial language that told them where the drugs and money were moving. This was the token system. To his people, it looked like a private ledger. Every shipment was represented by a coded symbol. Every payment was represented by a number. No names, no addresses, no explicit instructions. When drugs moved from a stash house in Los Angeles to a distributor in Brampton, it appeared only as a balance shift inside the system. If someone was arrested, their access was revoked. Their balances froze. The rest of the network continued. It meant no one had to know anything beyond their own role. At the center of it all was Ryan Wedding. He operated through multiple encrypted accounts, each one dedicated to a specific function. One would speak only to suppliers in Colombia, another only to money launderers, another only to enforcers. Even if one account was compromised, the rest stayed alive. It was the criminal equivalent of a distributed server network. By 2021, the network was moving tons of cocaine every month. The drugs came from Colombia through Mexican partners. They were moved into the United States using hidden compartments in commercial trucks and cargo shipments. From there, they crossed into Canada through Ontario and Quebec, feeding a massive market in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. Wedding never touched the drugs. He never met the drivers. He never appeared at stash houses. He only saw numbers. But numbers can still kill. As the network grew, so did its problems. Lost shipments, disputes over payments, paranoia about informants. That is where Christopher Clark came in. Clark was Wedding's enforcer. He was the one who dealt with problems that the token system could not fix. If someone stole from the network, Clark found them. If someone talked, Clark made sure they never talked again. If a rival tried to disrupt shipments, Clark responded. Wiretaps later revealed that nearly every violent act tied to the network passed through Clark. But the orders came from above, from Wedding. The further the network expanded, the more dangerous it became. By 2023, law enforcement estimated that Wedding's operation was responsible for dozens of murders, directly or indirectly. Not because he wanted blood, but because blood kept the system stable. That is the logic of modern organized crime. When paranoia increased, Wedding made a fateful decision. He began outsourcing killings to international hitmen. Colombian and Mexican contract killers were used because they were disposable. They had no loyalty to the network. They did the job and vanished. This made the system even harder to trace. When the protected witness was photographed and posted online in early 2025, it was not random. Someone inside Wedding's world wanted that person dead, and they had the tools to make it happen without ever picking up a phone. That is what makes Ryan Wedding so terrifying. He didn't need to give orders. He built a system where the orders executed themselves. By early 2023, Ryan Wedding's drug empire was no longer just a trafficking operation. It was a war machine. The cocaine was flowing in record quantities, but so was fear. Everyone inside the network knew the rules. Steal, talk, or make a mistake, and you would disappear. The first cracks appeared when shipments started going missing. Millions of dollars worth of cocaine vanished across the US-Canada corridor. Some drivers claimed they were robbed. Others were arrested. Wedding saw all of it through his token ledger. Numbers were not adding up. And in his system, when numbers did not align, people died. Christopher Clark began receiving encrypted messages ordering corrections. That was the code word for executions. One victim was a man suspected of skimming from a Toronto stash house. He was abducted, tortured, and left for dead. Another was a courier who failed to deliver a shipment on time. His body was found weeks later. Each killing restored balance in the ledger. Then came the Wrong House Massacre. In November 2023, hitmen sent to kill a suspected thief went to the wrong address. 3 innocent people were shot. The mistake sent shockwaves through law enforcement. It was no longer a hidden war. It was spilling into the public. Investigators started working backward from the violence. Digital forensic teams noticed something strange. The same encrypted account had been active before every major violent incident. It never used names. It never mentioned locations. But it moved balances. And after every adjustment, someone ended up dead. That account was Jesse King. When they compared Jesse King's writing style to other encrypted accounts, they found something terrifying. Al-Hay, Giant, Public Enemy, Jesse King. They were all the same person, Ryan Wedding. At the same time, informants inside the network began cracking. The fear was too intense. Some fled, some talked. They described a man they had never met, who controlled everything through screens. And then the protected witness was exposed. His photograph was posted online with no explanation. That was the signal. Within days, he was dead in Medellin. That killing confirmed what law enforcement already feared. Wedding's reach extended across borders, across prisons, across continents. By early 2025, the FBI made a decision. They stopped treating Wedding as a trafficker. They labeled him what he really was, a cartel leader. By the time the FBI added Ryan James' wedding to its 10 most wanted list in March 2025, investigators were no longer debating whether he was a major trafficker. They were trying to contain the damage he had already caused. Dozens of deaths, millions in drug revenue, and a transnational system built to keep running even if its architect vanished. That was the legacy of a man who once wore Canada's colors at the Olympics. What made Wedding so difficult to capture was not just that he was hiding. It was that he had designed his entire criminal life around the idea that he would one day need to disappear. His network did not depend on face-to-face meetings. It did not depend on a single courier or a single stash house. It depended on encrypted identities, coded balances, and a tokenized accounting system that let people move cocaine and money without ever knowing who they were really working for. That design gave him time, and in organized crime, time is power. Once he's closed in, the first thing they tried to do was break the system from the outside. Dozens of Wedding's associates were arrested across Canada and the United States. Stash houses were raided, bank accounts were frozen, encrypted phones were seized. For a moment, it looked like the empire might collapse, but it didn't. The token system kept running. Even after arrests, balances continued to shift. Drugs continued to move. That was the point of it. Wedding had built a criminal organism that could survive the loss of limbs. So law enforcement changed strategy. Instead of trying to kill the network, they went after the mind. They focused on the people closest to Wedding: Christopher Clark, the enforcer, financial handlers, couriers who had been promoted to mid-level coordinators. Under pressure, some of them broke. They began confirming what investigators had long suspected: that Wedding was not just coordinating shipments, he was orchestrating murders. The Wrong House killings in Ontario, the Niagara Falls execution, the Medellin witness assassination. Each one traced back to the same invisible hand. When the FBI made the most wanted announcement, it was a message to the world. Ryan Wedding was no longer a fugitive hiding quietly. He was now the most hunted Canadian criminal alive. A multi-million-dollar reward was placed on his head. Border agencies, Interpol, and intelligence services were alerted. And still, he did not appear. That is what makes Wedding so different from traditional crime bosses. He does not need to be seen to exist. His entire criminal identity lives in data, in accounts, in systems. Even as law enforcement shut down parts of his network, others kept functioning. That is the nightmare scenario for modern policing. A cartel without a face. What remains unknown is where he is now. Some believe he is in South America, protected by the same Colombian and Mexican networks he once paid to move cocaine. Others believe he is somewhere in Europe, living under one of his many aliases. A few believe he is still in North America, hidden in plain sight. What everyone agrees on is this: Ryan Wedding did not become what he is by accident. He did not stumble into organized crime. He engineered his way into it with the same precision he once used to race down an Olympic slope. From athlete to trafficker, from snowboarder to system architect, from national representative to global criminal. Ryan Wedding did not just sell drugs. He built a machine that killed people without ever touching a gun. And somewhere out there, that machine is still running. Subscribe to Complete Crime for more true stories where ambition, power, and greed collide in the world's darkest criminal networks.